Hey everybody, welcome to Seneca Studios Open Studios Night in April 2024. My name is Clifton Crawford and thank you for tuning in. We are an amazing glass art organization that does a lot for this community. We do all kinds of wonderful things. Check us out online. Tonight is our longest running program, our Open Studios Night, the second Friday of every month. We feature an artist and we are thrilled to have our incredible colleague Aaron Tate here with us tonight to do some more demonstrations. He's been with us many times. He is a fixture to this community of glassmakers. In my opinion, he is one of the best glass makers that I've ever known and witnessed. Thank you so much for being here, Aaron. For those of you who've never heard of Aaron Tate or Seneca Studios, check Seneca Studios out online, check Aaron Tate out online. But this guy has been making glass for pushing 30 years, yeah? And he's been all over the country doing it with some of the most amazing people. So Aaron, give us a little brief history of the Tate.
Found glass when I was 18 in Arizona. Philobaum's glass studio.
Pioneer.
A pioneer, one of the early pioneers in the resurgence of the glass art movement in America as it came back. And so fortunate to have found him. He gave me my start. I'm afraid I was a terrible employee, but not going into that. Eventually moved into Seattle, where I started glass again and worked for many glassmakers and different factories and companies making glass. Most notably, Seattle Glass Blowing Studio. Cliff Goodman, boy, after I just bugged him, he let me sit down and begin to gaff. And then I did what he wanted and then strayed constantly into my own thing, because I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. I quickly get bored with one thing in life. It's just a thing.
It's
with
a common theme with glassmakers, I feel.
Indeed. And so practice. So he just allowed me to gaff to my heart's content, and not only blown things, but sculpting. And that quickly became a deep passion of mine. And then I am now, 30 years later, proficient at glass blowing and sculpting.
Proficient. Yeah. Aaron is so humble, and he has been here at Seneca Studios. We offer a wide variety of workshops and classes for the public, but we offer more master classes, and Aaron has taught an incredible array of them in Venetian work. His Venetian technique is top-notch in sculpting solid, scooching glass around on the surface and just using every bit of it, not cutting any off onto the floor. Additive sculpting. Aaron has done incredible things with this material, and he's shared it. And the real, I think, kind of contemporary approach to glassmakers in this country and in this time, we're sharers. We share it openly, and Aaron is an incredible example of that, as he's brought things from all of his different experiences, and he's openly shared that with everybody. And we've taught many, many classes. So thank you for that.
Of course.
I see several pieces in the gallery today. There's a nice variety of technical work and sculptural work. So tell us a little bit about what people are looking at here.
Yeah, blown sculpture, which is a very interesting subcategory of glass, and then solid sculpture, and then traditional bowls, which it's a nice shape, and I try to be unique with the color patterns that I come up with, just to, make a lot of bowls and stuff and blown vessels that are just kind of unremarkable. But it's nice to put in the time and effort to make something that has been made since forever and make it new and put a little bit of my something in it. And Seneca has always facilitated my exploration in my new ideas. This place has been the first place I've tried a number of different techniques which are memorable in my mind. And I've had just the best of time here again and again and again. It's like a little mini vacation. I'm in Dallas area, and then to come up here to Fort Worth has just been little mini vacations, time and time again. Wonderful, wonderful memories.
Well, tonight, again, I'm going to push it a little bit and experiment. So what's the plan? What's the team up for tonight?
Cane roll-ups is a thing. Instead of pulling a long piece of cane and chopping that up to have uniform, consistent patterned things that are set side by side for a roll-up, I'm making each cane individually. And with that, I have a unique control over the color application, and then I surmise that the end result will be unique. And I'm trying out different variations. We did one earlier which failed completely, and so I'm taking that and putting it into this next attempt, and we'll see. It's fun, the exploration. We as glassmakers are not perturbed by failure, as it is just a necessary step in the progression of, and then pull that out to life. I mean, goodness sakes.
Absolutely.
So glass is just a wonderful metaphor for us to grow as individually and then together as teams, because there's so much with the communication, and it's just such the most wonderful material. And places like Seneca that facilitate this, thousands of people have been touched by this place, and it changes lives. Glass is a wonderful and deep, special thing that humans can do.
Absolutely. We all agree. We're thrilled to have you here, Aaron. Thrilled to have you guys tuning in. We're monitoring the chat during the live feed for the next hour or so, so if you have questions, feel free to engage with us through the technology. We have a whole series of videos that are out there, so if you like what's going on here, you can check all of that out. Watch us on our social platforms. We got a lot going on. Tomorrow is Open Streets, a huge community event down here. We have our spring market that's happening next weekend on Sunday. A lot of opportunities to highlight artists and to come and to participate and support the organization. Donations are always helpful. If you've got a few bucks, make a donation. Every dollar counts and makes a difference. I want to thank the Texas Commission on the Arts, the City of Fort Worth, Arts Fort Worth, the J.S. Edwards Foundation. A portion of this presentation was brought to you by the R4 Foundation, the Fifth Avenue Foundation, and so many people out there who have donated to help this organization grow. And we're not done. We have a lot planned. We are really looking for support to take this to the next level and to continue to highlight great glass makers in a community setting that celebrates and elevates all artists. So thank you, Aaron. We look forward to the rest of this evening. Thank you guys for tuning in. I want to thank Jean behind the camera, Heidi, and Megan. Kevin McGehee is here. It takes a village. It takes a team. So thank you guys all. Stay tuned. Into the studio. Let's make it.
Good stuff, everybody.
Here, let me get your mic. Microphone check. I turned mine off. Excellent. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you. Right? Yeah, that's right. You good?
All right, you guys, well, welcome to April's Open Studio Night with Aaron Tate. If you're joining us online for the first time, we do these once a month, so on the second Friday of every month. And we're doing this live right now, so if you're local to Fort Worth, come on out and check us out. We're gonna be streaming Aaron's demo for the first piece, but if you wanna see more, you're gonna have to come hang out with us in person. So Aaron's got two assistants helping him in the studio today, Gabby and Chris. And we're going to be working with a process called cane. So Chris is right now squishing some glass on the marber to make this cane. So if you guys have never watched glass blowing before, this is going to be a real treat for you. Glass is kind of an amazing, unique material, and it does take a lot of getting used to get comfortable with this process. And this is always a fun thing to watch. If you've never seen glass blowing before, at the heart of every glass studio is a piece of equipment called a furnace. You'll see that the glass that Aaron has pulled out of there is bright yellow, white in color. And then he's rolling it through some color on the marber. So we use color called frit. And when we're gathering out of our furnace back there, the glass is clear, even though it looks bright orange and bright yellow. So Aaron and Chris are working together. Chris is finishing up a bar right now, or a piece of cane. They're making this not very traditionally, so usually cane is pulled across the studio in very, very long bars. But at this point, Aaron and Chris are making these pieces kind of one by one as individual bars. You'll notice that Aaron is going into our reheating chambers to continuously heat up the glass or reheat the glass. And even though we're making Aaron's work, Chris is also working to help assist in this process.
So Aaron's doing multiple applications of the color to help increase the density of it, because as you notice, he's stretching and pulling this out. He doesn't want the color.
So Aaron is continuing to add color, and then he's going back into that reheating chamber to apply heat and melt all that color in. So we're going to see Aaron kind of smush this glass down now. Rolling it across the marber, which is a cooled steel table. You'll see the color change as he does that. So he's cooling the glass as well as shaping it up, which means that he's got to go back into the heat to add heat again. So these are pulled very differently from traditional cane, like I was saying. Generally, cane is pulled across the studio, so a thick bundle of glass is melted together and then stretched in very, very long rods. So this is a very different way of working with cane. These are actually not round, they're round at the moment, but I think he's planning on making them kind of rectangular in shape.
Which will be a bowl. Ideally, we'll put an additional layer of clear glass on top of this. So from start to finish, this piece should be somewhere in the hour to an hour and 20 minute range, depending on how well we assembly.
So you'll notice that the glass gets cold as he's working, and it's super important to add heat back into the glass if you want to change its shape at all. So here comes that squish that we were talking about. He's going for a rectangular shape, so he's squishing it on this steel marber with another steel plate, and that gives it that little rectangular shape. So because this is a team effort, as Aaron's working on that piece of cane, Gabby's starting to gather the next piece out of the furnace. So it starts with this bright yellow blob of glass on the end of the steel rod called a punty. And then Gabby's going to use this steel table called a marber to roll up the clear glass. So if you've ever noticed, if you've ever watched glassblowing, you'll notice that glass is very much a team sport. So you guys don't forget that you can come out and watch this happening. If you'd like to, we are at Seneca Studios on Magnolia Avenue in Fort Worth.
Fantastic. Absolutely. So, Aaron's
So you guys, the first part of this process is going to be a little repetitive. We're going to see Aaron making these cane one after the other, and then once he does that, he's going to use those cane to make a bowl. I think that's the plan. So because the glass is coming out of the furnace clear, we've got to add color somehow, and color is very often applied as crushed up little particles, but it can also be applied as a big chunk of rod. At this point, Aaron's kind of making his own little bars of color. So you'll notice that as the glass is nice and hot, it's picking up color pretty easily on that sticky surface. So we've got two different colors on this marber, and Aaron's basically making a color fade of both of them. Chris, do you know what colors those are?
This is apricot, and the other one is silver green.
Oh, cool. So apricot and silver green. And they're not going to be encased, correct? Or they
may
will?
be in the end,
They
yeah.
might be encased.
Probably will be.
They probably will be. So glass comes in different grades of frit. The crushed up little particles are called frit, and you can find them in different grades. So all the way from a fine powder form to like really big chunks of color. And then once it isn't in this crushed up form, you can also buy it in bar form, which are basically like big rods of color. So you guys, if you're local to Fort Worth, come on out, check us out. And if you've never watched us on this live feed before, and this is your first time kind of checking us out, also know that we do tons of classes and things like that. So if you want to learn how to do this, we are currently the only studio in Fort Worth that you can come out and do this. this is all prep work, and when you guys walk into a gallery and you look at the prices of glass, you're going to be kind of realizing through this demonstration why glass is so expensive. Not only is the material itself really expensive to manufacture, but we're still prepping for a piece that Aaron's going to make. So this is all part of the prep work that he's doing.
I probably have to make 5 or 6 or 7 of these.
5 to 7.
5 to 7? How many do you have so far?
Me too.
Yeah, I want to use the first ones, but they're kind of not so great.
Gotcha.
And it will cause problems. Even my slight variance that I have in shape and thickness of this.
So Aaron is talking a little bit to the audience about these pieces of cane that he's making, and each one of them having a little bit of variance in the thickness, and that possibly causing some issues. So as he's making these pieces of cane, he's putting them away into a color pickup box, and those are keeping them nice and toasty at about 1,000 degrees or so. So eventually we're going to be picking everything up from there. So you guys come on out, hang out with us. If you are local to Fort Worth. So I bet about maybe 30 minutes more of this will just be the prep for this bowl. We've got to get all these bars very, very similar in size and color and form in order for Aaron to be able to use it to make a bowl. So he's applying that silver green on the back side close to where the glass is attached to that punty. And then that apricot color goes on the tip. It's going to have this beautiful transition between the two colors. Now if you watch real close, you'll notice that Aaron's hands are always turning because glass is very, very susceptible to gravity. So he's got to kind of keep it moving constantly. And the moment that he stops moving, the glass will find the floor. So if you watched our live streams before, then you are pretty familiar with this process and this dance. The glassmaker will heat up the glass and then move to either the marble or the bench to shape the glass. And then they'll have to generally go back to that reheating chamber in order to add heat back into the glass. So Aaron's talking a little bit about reactions between the colors. So he's saying that the apricot and this silver green are going to have some sort of reaction between the two. So where they overlap, they're going to change a little bit and look a little bit different. So there's going to be kind of, if you want to think about it, there's going to be a third color in the middle. Aaron is using a tool called a diamond shears to chop off the end.
Another reaction I just showed is how a torch will make it silver.
So these colors that Aaron is using are reducing colors.
In a gas-rich
So
flame, it goes all silvery.
hopefully you guys saw that on camera. Some of the colors that we use in glass making turn a silver color when exposed to a certain type of flame. And all of the metal in the glass comes up to the surface when that happens, and it turns silver. So we're giving that piece of rod or cane a little squish to make it rectangular. And then he's doing a little bit of adjustment at the bench. Now you guys, while this is happening, I'm going to give you guys, Aaron's giving everyone a little quick preview of this glass and what it looks like up close. And he's going pretty close to the audience, but that glass, oh yeah, that glass is still very, very hot. So even though it looks cold and you can see the colors at this temperature, it is very hot. So you'll notice that silvering effect doesn't happen when Aaron is using this torch. This torch has a lot more oxygen in it, and so that's not going to change the color in the same way that the other one did. Some of this is going to be a little bit repetitive. This color prep is usually very repetitive. But all of these little pieces of cane are going to end up getting picked up later and then assembled into a bowl. So as Aaron is finishing up that last piece of cane, Gabby is going in with another color application of frit on the backside. And then the apricot frit on the tip of the glass. Now rolling it in color once generally will give you a very light effect of color on the surface. So if you've been paying attention, you would have noticed that Aaron has rolled in the color a couple of times. And that should generally give you a little bit of a thicker coating of color on the surface. So you guys, if you are local, don't forget to come out and hang out with us. And we are watching the chat, so if you have any questions about what Aaron is doing today or anything about glass blowing in general, feel free to put your questions down in the chat and we'll answer them as we can. Since we're doing a little bit of prep right now, let me tell you guys a little bit more about Seneca Studios and who we are. We're a 501c3 nonprofit glass organization, and our main mission is to bring glass to the public. People like you, your kids, your friends, your family. And we offer classes to do that, but we also offer a really cool rental facility. We do that through different programs like the one you're watching right now, which is called Open Studio Night, which is where we feature an artist once a month to expose the public to glass making. And so if you're you're interested or you've ever been interested in glass making or glass is on your bucket list,
Mine's to remove the shameful.
if glass has ever been on your bucket list, if you live close to Fort Worth or you live in Fort Worth, come check us out. Come hang out with us. You can check us out on our website, senecastudios.org. We've got tons of classes listed on there. And also tons of information about our other programming. So if you don't want to come make glass, you can come watch glass. If you're more of a buyer of glass, you can come check out our gallery. We're one of those spots that we've got something for everyone. So if you've got kiddos who want to play and they're a little too young to play with hot glass, we do teach classes in our kiln forming studio for kiddos that are 5 and up, where they're not exposed to any hot glass, but they can still make something really cool in glass. If you're the type of person who wants to play with hot glass, but you don't want to be in this studio working with it, we also offer flame working classes. You can get a lot of detail in a tiny amount of space with flame working. So it's definitely a fun one to try. If you've got some recycled, or if you've got some bottles hanging out at home and you're interested in recycling or repurposing, reusing them, trying to figure out how you can cut the glass and use them as tumblers maybe. We've also got a really amazing cold shop and cold shop classes so that you can learn how to cut bottles, grind them so that they're usable. So definitely go check out our website. We've got tons and tons of information on there. And we've really got something for everyone, so.
It's at 4. Oh, I was like, too cool.
Right. So, I overheard Aaron talking about this piece. He said he's going to make a couple more of these, and then he's going to pull some clear cane. And I think the clear cane might be placed in between these pieces, but I'm not sure. I guess we're going to find out together. So Aaron is going back into our furnace, and he's going to be making a couple more of these. Pay attention this time to the glass as he's working. You'll notice right now it's like this bright orange color, bright yellow maybe on the screen. And as he's working with it, you'll see it kind of cool down. And before he puts it away, you're going to be able to see like those colors that he's got on the marber in there. Basically a teal green color and then an apricot peach color. But right now when he's working with it, it's bright orange, bright yellow. Bright orange, yeah, bright yellow. And you can't really see those colors that he has on there.
Maybe those two that we threw away were cool enough to show still in a little while that you might be able to have cold color samples.
Notice that it's pretty orange right now. You won't be able to see that true color until the glass is actually back down at room temperature. So Aaron's had Chris pull out one of these pieces. It's sitting down here at at the bottom of the barrel. You can see the color is like kind of showing up, and that reaction that he was talking about between these two colors is showing up quite bright. So it's got that dark green, it's got that like light green in the middle, and then that orange on the end. And so all of these pieces, this bowl that Aaron's making is gonna have that transition of color. Basically that reaction that's happening between the two colors. It's pretty cool. So glass is chemistry, right? That's how we get our names, Silica Studios. Silica, sodium, and calcium. Which means that when we're thinking about color, we're also thinking about how those colors interact with each other, because each of these colors has something different in it to make that particular color. For example, cadmiums are generally colors, generally making things like yellow. We've got gold that ends up making colors like pink and purple and sometimes red. Chromium ends up making greens. Cobalts end up making blues. Copper too. Copper makes a greenish blue color. So chemistry is really, really important. And so,
It's so heavy.
that color reaction that Aaron is talking about is pretty cool because it really utilizes the interaction between, it's using a chemical interaction between the colors. And that is pretty cool. So just like before, Aaron is going to put these little bars in this color pickup, and that color pickup is sitting at about 1,000 degrees. Glass does not like a sudden temperature change, and so any pieces that we're planning on using, we've got to stash away in a hot box so that they don't crack, basically. So it sounds like this might be the last one, or at least the second to last one. Okay, so this is the last one, and then Aaron is going to do a cane pull, which sounds like it might be the more traditional way. He's going to pull a very long piece of clear cane, and that's going to be utilized in the piece as well. If you've never seen glass blowing in person, I highly encourage you to come check it out in person at our studio. We are the only studio in the DFW Metroplex that does glass blowing, flame working, kiln forming, as well as cold working in the same building. So we're a tiny little studio, but we've managed to fit quite a lot of stuff in this space. So like I said before, we've got something for everyone. So if you want to come check it out, we'll certainly find something for you. So we're still doing tons and tons of prep. This is so cool. All this prep work is going to go into this bowl that Aaron is planning on making. So glass is fragile, right? You guys, when you're working with glass at home, you're using it in your mixing bowl or your baking dishes, or even you're drinking out of something, you've probably at some point broken a vessel of some sort. Well, when we make glass, we break stuff all the time. So you can only imagine that when you put this much work, we've been like so far working for almost 45 minutes. So that's just the prep. The prep has been about 45 minutes. So you put all that work into something and then it could end up on the floor at the last minute, which is why this material is so precious. A lot of people walk into glass galleries and are a little bit surprised by the prices, but it's because of a very high rate of failure. things break all the time. So they might break while you're making them, or when you're even finishing them once they're at room temperature. But I think this is why we all really love this material. It keeps you on your toes quite a bit. Guys, we're going to be streaming this first piece. If you want to see more of Aaron's demo, we're actually working until about 9 p.m. tonight. So if you want to watch a little more of his demo, make sure that you come check it out in person. We're going to stream just this first piece, which is the making of this bowl. And then we're going to cut the live feed and just do an in-person audience for the rest of it. Pretty cool. So Aaron's going to pass that chunk of glass around to the audience. But it's still a little warm. So some of the interaction you miss out online when you're watching online is the interaction with the artist. So if you're interested in coming and hanging out and watching in person, you can talk to Aaron directly, ask him about his process, and chat with him about what he's making. Next step is going to be to pull a longer piece of cane. Sounds like it's going to be clear, which he's going to integrate into the bowl somehow. So he's pulling a long strip of clear, and it sounds like once that cools down, he's going to chop it up into little pieces. And he's going to maybe place it in between these rectangular pieces of cane that he's made already, but I'm not sure. So I think we're going to find that out together.
This will be clear, and you'll see how I pull it all at once and am able to chop up. We'll see if I get enough or if I have to pull again. But here we go.
Right. So cane in general is a very long, laborious process, and most people use it with a little bit of color, either down the center, around a core of clear or a variety of the two, like a combination of the two, maybe color on the inside, clear, and then color on the outside. But the process is very similar regardless of how you make it. It's really, the process is primarily to pull a very, very long strip of glass that can be then cut down into smaller pieces. So Aaron has made a clear core and he's gathering more glass on top of it. Now the glass that's coming out of our furnace is clear. It looks like it's bright yellow, but it is clear. So as things cool down, we'll see the color change. It'll lose that brightness. He's rolling it on the marber to cool and shape the glass, so you can see that the glass is slowly changing in color as well. And color for glass artists is a very indicative part of knowing whether something is too hot or too cold. But even when a color is lost fully from the glass, it still can sometimes be very, very hot. So Aaron is shaping up this piece of cane to be kind of rectangular like the other ones. But this is being done a little bit differently because he wants just some clear bars to hang out and be kind of spacers in between the other things that he's doing. So hopefully you can see the stretching of this clear glass. Now this is usually done in very, very long sections across the studio. People will pull very, very long bits of cane using the help of an assistant usually to pull glass across the studio. So Aaron is pulling this himself into longer sections. And that long section will be cut down and used kind of like a spacer. this is not really the way that people often do pull cane. It's a little bit different. But Aaron is very much an experimenter in the studio, so we will see a little bit of experimentation from him as we usually do. Pretty cool.
We'll go in between the canes that we already made.
So Aaron is putting those in between those colored pieces of cane. And he's going to do that one more time to get some more pieces of cane. All right, so you guys hang out just a second on the stream with us. We're gonna do a little bit more prep work. You're gonna see Aaron pull that clear piece of cane again. And then after that, we're gonna check out his roll up. He's basically gonna pick up all of those colored pieces that he made earlier on a collar and then make those into a bowl. So we're doing the same thing. We're taking a clear blob of glass, squishing it into that rectangular shape, and then he's going to grab it and pull it in a long piece of cane that he's going to cut up, just like the last one. So here comes that stretch. If you've got the right amount of heat, then the glass will stretch for a really nice long while, nice and long and evenly. And Aaron, it seems like he might not have been hot enough. He might not have been hot enough, so he's adding a little bit of heat with that torch and then pulling some more. Might just get 2 more pieces out of this one, and I feel like he said he might need 3. So he might do 1 more of these cane pulls before we do the piece itself. those go into the hot box as well. And then Aaron's gonna make one more of those clear pieces of cane, and then we're ready to make the piece. So this will be the last bit of color prep. Now, I said earlier that it has been about 45 minutes since we started color prepping. I was incorrect on that. It's been about an hour and maybe about an hour 15 minutes since they have been doing this color preparation. So we haven't even started making the form yet. We haven't even started making the piece. All of this is really just prep work so far. So Aaron's doing a little squish, same as before. And then he's gonna give it some heat and then pull it into another piece of cane. So this should be the last piece. So you can see that these can be pulled quite long as the first one, but also pretty short, like this one. Most people who are pulling cane are pulling tons and tons of cane at once, and so they're pulling it really, really, really long strips, letting it fully cool, and then they are picking it up into a piece. So most often this is done to create stripes of color in a piece. Aaron is putting that piece right in the box.
All right, good stuff.
And then Gabby's gonna go in there and kind of adjust all the color and the pieces. So if you're tuning in, there's a good nice chance to see what we've got going on in there. So all of those little pieces are rectangular cane. And you can see there's two colors with an interaction in the middle of the colors. They look really good.
Okay, now is the more form. We're starting to, we're going to heat those up. All that we've prepared thus far, we're going to heat it up.
So Aaron's plan now is going to be to heat up the cane and then squish everything together and then roll everything up on a collar. So he's going to make a tube. From that tube, he's going to make a bubble shape. And once you have glass in the shape of a bubble, it's easy to make a bunch of different forms from that. So, pretty cool. This is going to be super fun to watch. mixing around a bar of that color with that apricot and the green in there. So if you're coming around to check out this demo in person, you can see what that color is going to look like once it's all done.
I'm pretty sure everyone's
Yeah.
not really, but you know.
But I don't keep those things out.
So Aaron is getting ready to measure out this cane roll up that he's got going on, and he's going to use a set of pie dividers to do that. So if you are just tuning in, we've put all the color in this box here, and we're going to pick it up on a collar in a little bit. So hang out while we take a few minutes of a break. And we're gonna be picking this up on a collar here shortly after Aaron takes a little bit of a break.
We're a nonprofit dedicated to education, dedicated to community, and we use glass art and the creative process to help people to heal and to become interested in the visual arts, to become interested in science. A lot of our programming is focused around STEM concepts, STEAM concepts really, to include the arts. And we are a public access studio here for everyone. Seneca Studios was founded in 2010. We started off in program in early 2011, and we have over 30,000 people come and participate. The brand really illustrates community and bringing together the primary elements in community. We offer glass blowing opportunities, we offer flame working classes and workshops, and we also offer kiln forming classes. We've done programming for domestic abuse survivors, we've done programming for homeless kids and people who are looking to heal. We've used our process to help people to express themselves. One of our probably more powerful stories is about a young woman named Alexis who came in, and she had never worked with glass, and we did a kiln forming project, and she and her brother and several other students cast their ideas into thick pieces of glass, and she made a heart that helped her to express the loss of her father. Had a pacemaker. It was a real interesting piece, and it ended up going at auction to someone who had also lost their father, and it was a really powerful moment for all of us. She was struggling to express herself, and we helped her to find her voice and to make something that she could not only see how it could help her tell her story, but also to connect in the community and help someone else kind of heal through glass art. As Seneca Studio presents to foundations and to donors and receives support, oftentimes the support is specific to a project where we're bringing in kids that are connected with those foundations or with those donors, and that money goes specifically to offering this opportunity to people who wouldn't have it otherwise. The organization has a sustainability model where we generate revenue in many ways, and that revenue is what covers our overhead and keeps the organization going. The support oftentimes is specific to a program, so that 100% of people's donations go towards offering programming to people. Our outreach and our culture of outreach really drives us to find funding outside of that so we can bring the community in and offer programs specifically to our community. Thank you. We are a determined group, and I pledge that any support offered will be used in endeavors in the spirit of community, with kindness and generosity, and with fearlessness.
Good. Is that going to work? All right, so now that we have all of the color put together, it's getting nice and heated on the pastorelli. Erica's flipping it up back and forth to make sure we've got a really nice even heat. Aaron is building his collar on the blowpipe, measuring the diameter with those pie dividers. And when everything is just lovely and perfect, the two will become one. So as we go through the process, if you guys do have any questions, please yell out loudly. I'll do my best to answer for you guys. It's important that this diameter that Aaron's creating is accurate, so when he does roll over to pick up those canes, there is a minimal opportunity for gap. However, if there is gap between the canes, he can squish and pull them together to create a nice sealed vessel. A little bit of the fluffy torch helps put more heat towards the center of those cane, and then Chris will take it for a nice big heat. So I think overall Aaron likes the shape, likes the heat. It's just a little tiny bit of maintenance to keep everything warm, and then we'll come over and roll them all up. Good to see you. Absolutely. I'm very live. So a little extra squeeze, just to make sure that they don't have too much of a gap. A little tap to make sure that they're loose. Come over with that collar, touch down, and then slowly start rolling that whole sucker up. Nicely done, sir. Excellent. Very minimal gap on there. Jason Christian would be proud of you. He is the master. So just giving a little touch with that Kevlar cloth, make sure there isn't any kiln shelf embedded in the surface. The heat was really nice on that one, didn't pick up any material off of the kiln shelf, so we don't have any surface texture to worry about. And now a whole bunch of heating and shaping and compressing to get all that material back together in one spot. I can grab that camera, Gene, if you want. So much multitasking, so little time. So we're going to cool and shape this multiple times. compress it down. We want to make sure that there aren't any gaps between the cane, so that way it forms a really nice tight vessel. We'll be going back and forth multiple times to make sure the heat's really nice and even. The reheating oven that Aaron is using is about 2200 to 2300 degrees Fahrenheit. It is just pure heat and energy. This particular piece of equipment has a max diameter of about 16 and a half inches and about 34 inches deep. So we can make something pretty darn sizable in the grand scheme of things. The working time for this glass is about 20 to 25 seconds. The reality becomes you want to spend as little time shaping it, touching it, engaging it, so you don't lose any of your core temperature, so you can continually work the piece nice and efficiently. So the marver that Aaron is using right now is a cooling and shaping tool. This allows him to add compression, to stretch the material out, as well as close up those seams. You notice he was rolling hand over hand. That adds extra force into the process to really tighten everything up for him. So we can use the Dremel. It's got a diamond burr bit attached to it, and actually go in and grind the little bits of kiln shelf off of the surface of the glass. If we don't do it at this point in time, remove that material, when you encase it with another layer of clear glass, you'll have these little white specks throughout the entire process, and they will not go away. That is not ideal in the grand scheme of things. So we want to make sure the surface is as clean as possible. And yes, the Dremel is mostly plastic. I keep waiting for it to melt in just a moment's notice. Any questions from anyone? No, perfect, well done. Question was, can we reuse the waste product? To a certain extent, yes. The clear glass we can totally throw back into the furnace and remelt it, reutilize it. The colored glass, it becomes a little bit more challenging to reuse it in a capacity where we're fully melting it and bringing it back together. If you take all that colored material, try to remelt it, it'll eventually become a really nice light blue color, which is fantastic. But that also changes the total color of all that clear glass that's living in the middle of the furnace. You can repurpose it, maybe create a large sheet of the material, roll that back up, very similar to how Aaron rolled up those canes to kind of create a little bit more of an organic patchwork color and a pattern. But a lot of times when it comes to these small little bits and pieces, they just get taken back, thrown into a couple of large trash cans, and there's a guy that comes around and actually picks up the waste, takes it off and recycles it himself. So we do our very best to give it at least another opportunity to be utilized in some form or fashion. But here, we're sending it off. So the tool that Gabby was using to go on the interior of that form are actually Teflon coated jacks. So it's literally like the Teflon coating you would have on a frying pan. Goes on the interior. It's really smooth on the surface. Doesn't leave any texture as you're rolling to really create a really tight seam on the interior of things. Grabbing a pair of duckbill shears to cut and trim off that excess so it creates a really nice, long, even, smooth face. Go back in with those jacks, lifting and turning, making sure everything is nicely sealed. And then I'm going to guess, very similar to what we did on our first attempt, we're going to cut off a small patty of clear glass on the marver. That tube will be stuck to the clear little patty. That will create the bottom of the vessel, and then we'll get closer to actually shaping, condensing it down, adding more glass on top of it to ultimately create our bowl form. So we started making this right at about 6 o'clock, and we're about an hour and 20 minutes in, and we have yet to see a bowl form even start to shape. So,
I'm trying my best.
no, you're doing a beautiful job. This illustrates the complexity of working with this material. It's not just as simple as grabbing a big blob out of the furnace and turning it into some magical cool stuff. Especially with the color technique Aaron's trying to utilize this evening, doing that beautiful fade between the reactive colors to create something really pretty darnly unique in the grand scheme of things. So Aaron's going to grab a small iron, going with a 3/4 inch pipe, nice and solid, do a collecting gather, get a small bit of clear glass on the end. That furnace is running at 2,140 degrees Fahrenheit. Behind that door is a gigantic ceramic bowl that holds up to 385 pounds of molten clear glass, running at that temperature 24/7. We keep it running at that temperature so everything's nice and even. Our furnace actually runs pretty darn efficiently in the grand scheme of things as long as it stays operational. Little chomp, chomp, chomp with the diamond shears creates that beautiful little cookie foot. Smash it down in a moment. Little tap, little touch. Do we like the cookie? Do we not like the cookie? Oh, we're going to flip the cookie. Aha! Fantastic baking skills. The Great British Bake Off has nothing on you, sir. So now we stab that open hollow tube to the bottom of that cookie foot. That will now seal up the vessel. Cook that all down, compress it down, and eventually we'll actually start adding a tiny bit of air to it. I don't like it. Damn it. So Aaron's asked for a little bit of air pressure from Gabby to slowly inflate, make sure that the connection is really nicely sealed. He's using the spring of the jacks as a cooling and shaping tool to massage that clear blob back towards the base of it, and you can actually see where it's hotter, it's actually expanded up a little bit. We want to make sure that's really nicely sealed before we add another layer of material on top of it so we don't have any voids. Any place you have a void to it, it can actually trap more air bubbles once you put that coat on top of it.
Because my canes are not really straight, and I don't know if I'll be able to keep them truly straight, I'm going to give them a twist to the pattern overall so that it's pretty and intentional.
Everybody get that? Instead of trying to keep these canes nice and straight, Aaron's going to come over to the marver, shape it, and then start adding rotation in one direction, and that's going to cause a twist to those canes and just really emphasize that momentum. And the addition of the clear cane between the color cane is really, really a lovely touch.
This top color is much softer and hotter happening than the tip color, so I must take that into account fully.
Different colored glasses are made of different metal oxides. Generally the transitional metals in the middle of your periodic table, those metals heat at different rates. So if you've got a really soft metal, it's going to move faster than a stiff metal as Aaron was just talking about, that apricot has stiffer colorant that's going to make it move more slowly. And that absolutely goes into the decision making of how you actually apply the color. We want that base or the bottom of the vessel, what's facing you guys right now, to be a little bit more rigid as we blow it out. We want the top section where that silver green is, a little bit of air pressure, make sure the bubble's there. We want that silver green to move a little bit more aggressively, so that's why it's going to be at the top of the vessel. So to really emphasize that twist, Aaron's going to grab those jacks, rotate towards himself. By grabbing with the blades of those jacks, it creates just enough torque to really, really create a nice tight twist, and then finish it off with the diamond shears to really, really make a nice tight twist. A little bit of air pressure just to even the walls out. Probably do a couple of more heats. Absolutely, Aaron Tate, everyone. Excuse me, sir, please don't touch the hot glass. Unless you've signed a release form. Mr. Crawford, I'm talking to you. Yeah, don't touch that again. People will see you do it, and then they're going to want to try to do it too. So the more compact the form is, the easier it is to actually work. So we're going to use this cherry wood tool. It's called a block. It is purely for shaping. By lifting upwards towards the ceiling and slightly inwards, it condenses the glass down. It gives it a little bit more of a Q-tip shape, which for adding more material is a really, really fantastic form. And then using that oxygen propane torch, that creates a flame of excess of 3,000 degrees. To really, really spot heat that one little mark, so we don't have to worry about any texture on the base of it. So a little bit more cooling and shaping, utilizing the martyr, evening out the exterior. And then as Aaron said, he's going to let this get nice and cool. Once he likes the shape, fire polish, make sure that there isn't any texture on the surface from the steel. Then we'll let it get cool. Cool to us is somewhere between 900 and 1,000 degrees before we add another layer of clear glass on top of the exterior of it. Yes, sir. If you strip the clear, just go into the small bucket here. So as Aaron's gearing up to get this next gather, who is asking if he has excess glass, where to place it. We call it a strip gather. So if he does have too much, he'll just dump it straight up and down in that little tiny bucket, let it all kind of run off, so he's got a more even application of the material. Not fun, Gene. So this is certainly a little bit of hurry up and wait. You don't want to gather new material with the glass exceptionally hot. If you go in there, you can actually lose the material you have on the pipe. It'll physically start stripping into the furnace. And with that furnace being all clear material, any color that gets in there, we immediately go to fish it out so it doesn't slowly tint the color of all that clear glass. However, if we sit out here too long, let it get too cold, when Aaron dives back into the furnace to add that fresh layer, it can totally thermal shock, explode, and let all that material just fall right off. He likes the temperature, likes the shape, going in, winding up the material really nice and quickly. Little bit strip off into the furnace, and then if there's any excess, he'll go straight up and down. He'll just slowly strip right off the end of that pipe. All that clear glass that's going into that bucket, we can absolutely throw back into the furnace and remelt on Monday. So now we've got that fresh layer of clear glass. The more clear you add to a thing, the bigger it has the opportunity to be. So if we wanted to make a really, really gigantic bowl, we just keep adding more and more clear glass over the surface of it. However, the more you add, clear-wise, you also have to compensate with more color so that color doesn't totally diffuse and get lost in the whole process of things. Yes, Mr. Sharp, you had a question. Is the clear glass protecting the color on the outside? Yes, to a certain extent. It does create a nice little barrier on the exterior. So when you hit it with a fluffy torch like this, you're not pulling all the color up to the surface and creating a reduction atmosphere. In this instance, we want that surface to be really nicely encased. The cool thing about this color process is once Aaron opens this up and turns it into a bowl, we have all that lovely heavy metal concentrated color on the interior that we can hit with a reduction flame to create a really nice mirror finish if we want to. So now finally we get to the glass blowing part of the process. First with a little bit of shaping, of course. Asking for a little bit of air pressure to slowly inflate. You notice Aaron, every time Aaron comes over to the marver, he's wiping it down, wants to make sure that there isn't any texture from any dirt or pollen that may blow in. That pollen on the dirt will actually attach to the surface of it and create little texture that we definitely do not want to have. So Aaron's grabbed what honestly is just a whole bunch of wet newspaper folded up in multiple layers. That cools and shapes the material while Gabby's adding the air pressure. It slows the progress of that bubble. The tool he's got in his hands right now are called jacks. He's creating a constriction line at the head of the pipe. That is eventually going to be the opening of the bowl. So he's condensing that down pretty aggressively. to make sure it's a really nice, tight, even line. Are you going to keep this relatively thick? So Aaron's looked at the clear base to it. It's a little off center. He's trying to determine if it is something that he can adjust and bring it more even to the center. Again, going back to that wet newspaper for cooling and shaping.
The friction of the marker is not very friction. My marker is made of friction.
I didn't get a chance to clean the marver. I am sorry, sir.
No, I don't think about claiming this. Probably mine is dirtier and has more rust on it.
Got a little more bite.
I'll go get the angle grinder and we will make it really, really dirty for you. So by pressing on that table, it actually kind of redistributes the material, helps them center that clear tip more to the middle, and then asking for a little bit of air pressure, really gentle pressure, just a subtle inflation. And that really actually helps center it up quite nicely.
I think, yeah, I improved it. If it's not perfect, it's improved.
And it is one of the challenges adding that cookie foot to the middle of this tube. It's a slightly blind stab, so you're kind of using a little bit of muscle memory to determine if you're actually hitting the center of that cookie foot to stab it to the bottom. Back to the jacks, re-crispening up that neckline. A little bit of water on the newspaper, a little bit of air pressure to continue to inflate.
Now, the type of bowl I'm hoping to do is a low bowl. So I'm going to squat this back, setting us up for that shape. The shape I have in my mind.
The low bowl, the most difficult of all bowl shapes. If you have any experience doing anything with glass, it's not a fun form to try to create. The low bowl usually ends up in the floppy bowl or fluted bowl format, which is a beautiful secondary opportunity.
We'll talk more about that later.
Fair enough. So Aaron's capped the back end of the blowpipe with the palm of his hand. That keeps pressure in the pipe. As he holds it up, it squats down, but does not allow the tip to fall into the midsection. Aaron's grabbed a nice cherry wood paddle. That's going to start creating a base for the bowl, and then add in a little bit of air to slowly blow that out. So for a low bowl, you want a really wide midpoint, or what we would call a shoulder. Generally, as we start blowing forms out, we start looking at them in terms of a more figurative shape where we have a foot, a waist, a shoulder, a neck, and even a lip, so that way we can communicate what section we need to move at a given time in the heating process. One more time to that neckline, create a nice tight constriction line. And we now have created a beautiful little Hershey's Kiss. Asking for really hard air pressure to inflate that shoulder up as he flattens the base. And Aaron likes the overall shape. He's asked for a punty. We're going to do that on a 3/4 inch rod. Up. So up to this point, everything that is facing you guys is actually the bottom of the piece. In order to remove this, to open it up, make it a nice bowl form, we're looking for what we call the punty. It's a bridge. It's an attachment point. It's also that solid rod that Gabby now has in her hand. We're going to add a small gasket of clear glass on the end of it, cool it and shape it into a little tiny Q-tip, create that form, attach it to the base of the bowl, and then break it free from the blowpipe so we can access the interior of the vessel and slowly open this thing up. However, we've got to get that pipe a little bit on the warm side before we add any glass to it. Hot glass always needs something hot to bond to. If we took this cold rod, dipped it into the furnace to add a little bit of material to it, it's not going to pick up enough. It'll actually slide more material off the end of that pipe. So Gabby will go in, wind the material onto the end of the pipe. Maybe she'll cool the pipe, I'm not sure. I don't know if Aaron has any feeling left in his hands or not. Oh, going straight to shaping, a little bit of pressure, nice even rotation. What we're creating is just a nice little dome. And the punty is designed to be a fragile connection. We don't want this to bond really tightly to the base of the bowl. If it does bond really tightly, it'll break and take a big chunk right off the base of it. A little bit more shaping, probably a little bit of heat. Nope, Aaron likes the shape, likes the temperature. Just using that MAP gas for a little extra heat. He's going to grab his tweezers, grab the punty, stick it to the best of his ability to the middle, and then slowly add pressure. In this case, lifting slightly up to balance the punty to the base of the bowl. You have very short working time to actually manipulate the material. We're now nicely centered, adding a little water on the neckline. The water makes a fracture, and the vibration allows it to break up. You did that so efficiently. I didn't get to go through my whole routine. But basically, you just broke glass with water. Gabby will get it nice and stabilized, bring it back to Aaron. He's going to use those tweezers to lift and pull the bowl to make sure it's centered on the punty. And then we can use that nice oxypropane torch to superheat that punty and then lift and pull. Pretty way off. In Aaron terms, that's like 2 or 3 millimeters. For the rest of us, that would be like 5 or 6 inches. Any questions so far? You guys have been just completely entranced, which is perfect. That's what we expect. Are we centered? We are centered. Excellent. Now we build heat and prepare to open. So Aaron has asked for a lip wrap. This is going to be a nice small little wrap of glass literally around the lip of the piece. Oh, Gabby, you broke it.
The color?
Nah. So this lip wrap is going to be made out of gold topaz, a nice bright amber color. To the best of my knowledge, this is about the only thing a machine can't do in terms of making a glass thing. So Gabby's going to get a couple of small gathers of clear glass directly out of the furnace.
And an interesting thing that we may have forgotten about is that when I open up this hole, there will be color on the surface. Something special with this color application that is not so common.
Sorry. So in order to apply this color for the lip wrap, Gabby's going to cook in one layer of color at a time. Going to do 2 coats, 3 coats. What do you think? 2 full coats of the gold topaz on the surface of the clear. That'll get shaped up into basically a big fat cone and then taken to Aaron and wrapped around the edge of the lip.
Is there another batter? This was the one that I got from the bag.
There's a charger in the cabinet. Yes, gold topaz will reduce. They do look identical, don't they? Nothing. Heck yeah. So again, we're in a little bit of a hurry up and wait process. We can't let the bowl get too cold. So Aaron's going to constantly be going back to the reheating oven, keeping things nice and warm. That allows Gabby the opportunity to build the heat that is needed to put into the front section of the wrap, so when it's applied, it threads off really nice and evenly, trails off really smoothly. It does give Aaron the opportunity to keep goofing around with the piece, to slowly adjust minute little details that none of us would ever see at this point. But it is the beauty of what Aaron is able to do at such a high level, because he sees all those little tiny details and knows how to adjust and fix them. Nice little maintenance heat, or what we call a flash, 7 to 10 seconds into the fire. We've got enough heat on the lip wrap. Gabby's going to bring that vertically over the top, touch it down. Aaron's going to slowly trail this all the way around the surface of the lip, and then come in, trim it off, and now this bowl is going to have a really nice gold lip rolling all the way around it. You guys are really committed. You've been here like through this entire process. That's pretty fantastic. Thank you guys for hanging out with us this evening. All right, Aaron likes the overall shape. He's going to start building heat down towards the base of the bowl. In order to make a low bowl, you have to put the heat back in toward the bottom of it, or in this instance where it's the coldest part. The big challenge is not spinning too fast to allow that lip to open. Centripetal force really wants to start working nicely and aggressively. So it's going to be a multiple heats to cool the lip, shape it, cool the lip, shape it, cool the lip, shape it, and allow that heat to penetrate back into the bottom section of it. By pressing downwards, that slowly opens the lip of the bowl up. Chris is using that wooden paddle to make sure the lip stays nice and flat and cold. Man, just wait for the final open if they're excited about that. So by using the fluffy torch, which is just a nice propane torch, Venturi, about 40,000 BTUs, give or take, we can isolate the heat in the back section of the bowl, keeping the lip nice and cold, so as the heat gets built back into it, the lip will open more slowly, and we can push into the bottom section of the bowl to extend it and make it wider. How low of a bowl are you going to make? Like Taza low? Or slightly above Taza? So really and truly, as we go through the process, multiple shapes pop up at any point in time. The important factor is trying to create the object you ultimately want to create, and not just kind of settling for the form, as amazing as it might be at any moment in time. So ultimately what Aaron wants to do is just really make a nice, even opening, a nice graceful form. It may not be as low as a form as you might like it to be, but ultimately just a really nice, fluid motion from the foot to the lip. Welcome, welcome, squeeze on in. You came just for the perfect dramatic moment. By closing the doors back around the entire piece, it really helps push more heat into the back end of that bowl. Again, going to the newspaper, cooling the lip and that front third, and then taking those Teflon jacks, lifting and pushing upwards, basically redistributing the shoulder so it pushes out more wide and slowly makes a broader form. It's a beautiful shape regardless. And it's more about the color experimentation at this point anyway. We got to focus. So eventually Aaron will come to a point where he likes the shape. I promise it will happen, because at some point we all have to go home and go to sleep. Because we have open streets tomorrow. A whole big old festival from noon to 6. Be blowing glass all day long. But I'm saying all that to get to the point where once this is finalized, it does have to go into a cooling oven. That is this big gigantic cube behind me over here that's sitting at a balmy 921 degrees Fahrenheit. That will allow this glass to slowly cool. We run about a 16-hour cycle to bring all the material down to a room temperature. Otherwise, if we break this off of the pipe, set it on the table, it's going to cool down way too quickly, compress onto itself, and then blow up and fall into a whole bunch of really, really pretty pieces. So ultimately what we make today, we really don't get the opportunity to see until late Sunday, early Monday afternoon. Pretty significant heat build. And you can see centripetal force did the majority of that work for him. Come in with the paper, a little bit of cooling and shaping. Chris is both cooling and shaping the lip as well as the foot. Aaron's turning really nice and deliberately to keep that shape really nice and compact without allowing it to get really big. Coming in with those Teflon jacks, pushing actually back towards his left hand to try and widen the base a little bit more broad. Yeah, it's really beautiful. That's fantastic form. So I'm going to turn off the mics because I'm going to put on a face shield and you don't want to hear me breathing.
Thank you. Alright you guys, so the last part of this live stream is really about putting this piece away. So at the end of every piece, the glass needs to be bonked off the blowpipe or the punty with a little bit of water. Chris is torching the bottom of the piece, and then it's going to go into an annealer to cool down overnight. Very nice.
Nicely done, Aaron. Thank you.
Very nice job, Aaron. Thank you for demonstrating with us tonight. You guys, we're going to be cutting the live stream here, so if you want to watch any more of what Aaron is doing tonight, be sure to come check us out in person, okay? So we are cutting the live stream now, but come hang out with us, and if you're not here this month, we'll hopefully see you next month for our demonstrating artist on the second Friday of May.